Jake, what's going on?
Kurtster, what's happening?
Oh, comic books, reading them, loving them, drawing them, publishing them, selling them.
Yeah, that's right. And reviewing them. How about we do some flip throughs here?
Yeah. So we're all, this is the stuff that we're influenced. Now, we have a very, very similar taste, I find, but we do get divergent points. So I think that's one of the neat things about us getting together and doing this breakout excerpt, from our Making Turbo Pit Fighter comic. Um, we talk about the things that influence us individually or maybe even collectively. So you are the first man to go up. So go ahead and get it going.
All right. Well, today I have decided. Let me bring myself on full screen here. Okay. I've decided to compare side by side two examples of what would you call this? Like female sword
Warrior
slingers.
woman.
Yeah, female swordswomen. This is obviously fantasy because, you know, going out in a bikini, to fight your battles, it's probably not the most protection that you could afford yourself. Um, so yeah, I mean, these are kind of like offshoots of Red Sonja. Yeah, Red Sonja really hit a nerve, I think, with the comic buying public, and it's like we want to have this. When they talk about fantasy, it's not just the fantasy of like, oh, there's dragons and demons and elves and stuff. No, the fantasy is that these women are scantily clad, but they can somehow overcome these like gigantic barbarians that are 5 times their size, and um,
Fantasy.
yeah, and
Fantasy.
boy do they look good doing it, right?
Fantasy.
And I've been wanting to talk about this for a while because I saw a YouTube video a while back about from a female perspective of the real fallacy that we see with strong female characters is, and they had like 5 different categories, but one of them was definitely this, like this, 90-pound waif, with big boobs is somehow going to be able to kick the butt, of like, like multiple, you know, um, hordes of barbarians, over and over again.
Fantasy.
Right. So, there is something to be said about like, okay, this is just complete fantasy. It's eye candy. It's all just, imagination. But if you like sci-fi, part of the appeal is that, you get drawn in by the possibility of like, oh, there's some realistic ideas here. Maybe it's just that, this is going to happen in the future, right? Like maybe there'll be flying cars or something. So we're going to compare Taarna to Arhian Huntress, or the Huntress. I don't know if her head is blocking but they definitely have the masthead is definitely being interfered with. In this case, by the sword, and in this case, by the woman's head. So I don't have Taarna number two. I mean number one, but I have number two. Here she is raising her bloody sword.
Now this is
And
Taarna from the heavy metal movie,
that's right. And she has her
the
own
original.
breakout. She has her own breakout comic. This is Heavy Metal circa 2018, and they are publishing comics. These are floppy comics, right? Not just in the Heavy Metal magazine. And I gotta say, this art is great, and this is
Yeah.
right along
Yeah.
the right along
Who's
the.
the artist?
We'll get to that. The artists are Esau and Isaac Escorza. And I'm just going to take a guess and say Spain, but it sounds something, maybe Italy, Spain, something like that. Cover by Luis Royo. Didn't recognize that. He's a name.
Classic.
And the publisher here is still Kevin Eastman, Grant Morrison is the editor-in-chief. So they've commissioned this Taarna comic. This is number 2. This is a very recognizable style. It's fully colored in, but it isn't like, comic book color. This is like, I mean, you could see here, like, this is watercolor washes. This is like artwork, right? This is like colored art. I'm guessing maybe they did this all with brush and gouache, and you can see it's not just like the halftone dot of the typical Marvel and DC comic, or even the Photoshop stuff that we've been seeing since the 90s. Um, you have this character. She's got this cute little outfit that's already kind of shredded to bits. We have these flying creatures. This reminds me of Mobius, right? And Arzak, right?
Who wrote the story? I'm sorry.
Stories written by Alex DeCampi. And here's all the credits here. We got those 2 artists. I'm assuming brothers, maybe. Colorist Carlos Cabrera. Props to him, because this is better coloring. We complain a lot about coloring.
Outstanding.
Yeah, and editor. There's an editor here, a managing editor, the cover, and then there's also a cover B by Chris Aquileos, which I don't know if we get to see that maybe in the back, but so here's great, just great comic book layout. Look at look at the lettering, right? Look at the boxes. It's very little here, just a little thought in each panel. And, here's a little bit of dialogue. To me, the dialogue, this is something that we've been going over in our comic is, to me, this dialogue kind of like sits on top of the art, and that's a little distracting. These are just like black letters on white backgrounds here for the captions. And it's not too much in the way, but don't you think this would be better if it had like this matching yellow tint in the background of the word balloon, of the dialogue balloon? Here, I hate this actually. I think this should be colorized. It should be softened. Like it looks just like it's a Photoshop layer sitting on top of it. And I guess they do that. This has to be done in multiple languages, right? These are international comics.
Yeah.
So they don't want to. You don't want to just have one final version of the art. So that you could bring it into different languages. But here we see that she's wounded in this attack, right? She gets shot pretty badly right here on page 1. She's lying out here. A couple other people are lying out. There's some silent sequences here. This really reminds me of Mobius Arzak. That maybe, that maybe it's just the sensibility, or maybe they're like in the same type of a world. I noticed this kind of, I don't know if this is coming across, but I noticed this kind of yellow haze, that they're laying on here. It looks like they're just like saturating with this yellow, and I think it works, but it kind of like, it kind of impinges on the black line here. Maybe that's something that we want to think about. It's like, you separate the foreground elements, take the background, and then just like you're just dropping like a giant brush, or maybe using a gradient tool with a radial effect, and you're just going over it with a color that's kicking back your black lines. And I don't even, I'm just assuming that this is hand painted, but this could be a combination of hand painted, and then you bring it into Photoshop and do these filtered things, because here we have these glowing screens here, and you can see there's like a haze around it that I think is going to be done in Photoshop. So maybe they're using all the best of both worlds. Yeah, here you can see that there's some blurring going on. So that's my guess on this. My guess is that this is hand painted, and then they're coming in and going into Photoshop and doing a whole other pass. Here we see the character Taarna is being operated on in the medical laboratory here. They're patching her up. I guess in the future they just heal people, up real quick, and they get right back to it. She's, beautiful backgrounds here, right? You're seeing like these, they're putting in this like great value here for the carvings, and the floor looks really like you know, like it's in relief. Um, you know, and they don't skimp on the backgrounds. You know, they're here, they're here. You know, great art, great pencil. So you know, I'm thinking maybe one of the brothers, if they are brothers, one of them is the penciler, one is the inker. Maybe they divide the labor like that, but they didn't identify it, right? So maybe they go back and forth. Um, I also like Taarna's hair. I like how they do her hair, right? There's some ink, you know, there's some ink lines, and then there's some, you know, some lines that come in through the coloring process. Here we see the tentacles coming through the floor. So, you know, there are some kind of like themes that they're hitting on here. But you know, a lovely woman that you know is some kind of warrior in the future, and there's these bad guys here. What do you think about the blurring, Kurt? Is it a negative or a positive?
I think it's something they brought in with movies, you know, trying to mimic a movie, and I'm not completely opposed to it, but when it's done, it should be done as an effect that's secondary. It shouldn't be the primary focus. So I haven't really seen anything because it's such lush art. I'm
Yeah,
just by the entirety of the book and pages by composition, I'm engrossed. So I'm not really, other than the digital lettering and effects. That's always the thing that bugs me the most. But
right.
I'm really taken by the artistry of this story. So I give it two thumbs up.
It's great art. You know, I'll also say, you know, we're seeing a lot of action here, right? Right. You get some action here on the first page. She gets injured. Then you see all this. They're kind of like setting up this thing where she comes into the lab. She gets patched up. Now we get into some. You know, she's walking through into this hall, and we're gonna see there's some action happening. They start beating her down, and it's on, right? The guy snaps his fingers, and then here we see, you know, some fighting, some fighting, some fighting, some fighting, some fighting, 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 fighting. I love this, right? I love this. This one, the anatomy seems a little bit out right here. If this is her chest and her, you know, then her head, you would think it would be a little bit bigger there. But yeah, you know, they do have this blurring here. You know, I think it works because they're only doing it a little bit. I mean, and this kicks off the action. I think when they do it too much, and you know, like you said, you know, it becomes too obtrusive. That's not good.
Well, it
I'm
becomes a
noticing
primary focus.
right. I'm noticing these sound effects. These sound effects look like they bought some kind of filter pack or something, and these are all just typed. You know, it's like, hey, buy these new sound effect.
Well, they should have
You know,
colored them at least. I mean, the fact that they're black outlined white in
yeah,
it's just
they are white and black,
it's
and that
sad. It's sad,
right.
but
It just kind of sits on top of there,
yeah.
right, and it's distracting. Like integrate it with the backgrounds, make it like some of the colors. Right, they have such great like overall, you know, color mood, right? The limited palette here, that's a great thing. Colorists, you know, limited palette, you know, and then you go to another page and it has a whole different palette because
It's
you know maybe
fantastic.
the green lights came on. So good action, good storytelling. Here you can see the guy's saying after her, and they use the liquefy tool on the words. Um, I like the idea, but they might have gone a little too far. Um, but yeah, I love these guys. I love this whole thing. I love this process. This is good value, good comics. You know, then you know ask yourself like, could the story be a little bit more you know believable? You know, and look here we're getting into
Believable
the
in what sense?
well, you know, in the sense that I mean, you know, maybe I'm put off by the cover because she does have like kind of like a battle suit on, And the
Well,
thing that I was thrown by
my thing
the
is that
bikini.
I have a complete establishment of who Taarna is in my mind's eye. So, but besides this, not really keeping within my own mind's eye of who Taarna is from the animated cart movie, this is
Uh,
really good. I mean, I do want to get a hold of this story because
yeah, no,
the
this is
artistry is
part.
great. I just don't know what more could be contributed to it in the way of story. That you are kind of flipping through it pretty good,
Yeah,
and
no.
you haven't
Well, I'll
had
tell you.
you don't have issue one. So what are
Look,
you saying?
they're feeding the bodies in. Well, she's on this world, and she was shot down and then patched up, and they start like smacking her around. She fights her way to freedom. They're feeding bodies into this mulcher here. Um, when it comes to the story, when you have like these attractive women that are kicking ass, I would refer everybody to the Quentin Tarantino movie called what's the one? True Romance. Because in
Oh
that one,
gosh, that's
there's a scene where the woman fights and overcomes, but she really does, take a brutal beating,
all
and
right.
and
So
it's real.
stop. I just watched that movie last week. Uh,
Uh-huh.
Patricia
Last week,
Arquette. Patricia
yeah,
Arquette. No, I've seen it 100 million times. I just
right.
finally watched it again. But the scene you're talking about, I want everybody to know you have to get Tony Scott's director's cut. So there's many cuts of the movie. The last cut that was made for that movie has the extended fight between Patricia Arquette and
It's brutal.
Sopranos, Tony Soprano, the actor that plays him.
Oh,
Uh,
Gandolfini?
yeah, and it's one of his. I think it's his first movie role, and
Yes, it's
it is. You are absolutely correct, my friend. You are absolutely correct. And the establishment of her character and the lead up to that is it's flawless and impeccable and a must see if you are going to establish a truly strong female fighting character.
right. I mean that made it believable to me because she just took such a beating, and she, through perseverance and will and everything, she overcame the guy. And when Red Sonja just like wipes out a guy, with one swing of the sword, it just doesn't, that just doesn't have any realism to it. So yeah, just to finish out this one, we got some ads here for some other heavy metal comics product. Um, interesting stuff. They have good art, and I think they're doing the Iron Maiden character in comics now.
Is that
I don't know if I
Eddie?
like the Eddie, right? So Eddie's, but they don't call it Eddie. Um, this I don't know what this is. There's an AR app. So they have heavy metal is advertising an augmented reality app in 2018, and when you use it, I think they're trying to say that it changes the pages. Augmented reality comics work with select pages of heavy metal issue 289. Get it on Google Play, download at the App Store. Who's ever heard of that?
First time for
So
me.
something that they experimented with. Well, it's here. It's 2023 now, and you haven't heard it, but maybe something to look into. Here we see heavy metal coffee and a double page spread. So they're getting into the coffee business. And, I just want to say this is a way that people can support their creatives. You're going to buy coffee anyway. This is probably coffee that they sell, to any business that
It's
you can put
private
your logo
branding.
on it. Yeah. And so people can support you because it's like, well, I have enough T-shirts. How can I support heavy metal? I have everything that came out this month. How can I support them? Well, I'll go ahead and buy the coffee, right? And then yeah, so this is another ad for the Iron Maiden character, but here I think they have a video game that they're cross promoting. So I guess Iron Maiden is really getting into the merchandise game, and they're doing a comic and a video game. So this is how I learn about this stuff. Here's some great Frazetta influenced paintings by a painter, Ryan Brown. And this is just plugging the latest issue of Heavy Metal on Comixology, which is, I guess, digital versions of Heavy Metal. And then here on the back cover, they don't really do anything. So let's compare this to something I picked up um, at a comic store. And this is completely independent outfit called ARH Comics. So you got Arhian the Huntress, you got ARH Comics, and then you have these creators that are all ARH or ARA. Let's see, Araham Raja is the story, written by Araham Raja and Abraham Kawa, illustrated by Yanis Rambulius, um, lettered by Yanis Zumpas, covered by Christos Martinez, nice cover, um, colored by Billy MD and Mike Torres. So I've never heard of ARH Comics. I don't know if I'm supposed to pronounce that R, but you got a lot of ARs going on here, and they're online at arhcomics.com with an X. They are out of Nampa, Idaho. Okay, so I'm going to guess that they're the only comic company in Nampa, Idaho. But let's dig into this. I'm just going to flip through this one a little bit quicker. Comparing, right? You have this female character, stunning female, scantily clad. She's armed to the teeth, and I did read this ahead of time. So she is a bounty hunter, and she's searching for her prey here. Here, this is more, I think, the Photoshop treatment that we're getting here. So, you compare this to the last coloring job, and, you see these hard outlines, hard black outlines, right? This is a different style, but I would say this is also a little more amateurish because, I would advise these guys, like, either colorize that outline if you're going to try to make this work within this, like, whole full color Photoshop page. Blend it in. Like, you're getting a hard outline. It's making the thing look cartoony. It looks like a drawing that was scanned into Photoshop and then colorized after, and that's distracting. Um, so here she, this kind of moves, pretty slow and predictably, but, she's going through this town and she's saying how bad it stinks and, how scummy it is. And she's got, her eyes on her target. She comes across the target soon enough, and she dispatches him pretty easily. Now, I'm not going to say the art is bad. The art is pretty good. The anatomy is good. The layouts are good. The compositions are good. The storytelling is good. My real complaint is that this hard outline is killing me. Like, you can see it here, you can see it here. It just gives it a cartoony quality that I think they could have avoided if they would have built up the shading to kind of define those shapes, or if they would have just taken the damn thing in Photoshop and applied a color to it. And I know that's work. Trust me. You have to separate everything from everything else and put it on its own layer and all that. We spoke about that when we were looking at Godland, and like how they probably have a completely separate production team doing all that, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
But here, we're seeing a good kind of like variety of angles, right? Like, here's an up angle. That's all good. It looks like these guys also got the sound effect font, like like the other people did. Just shoot me in the head if I ever suggest buying the sound effect font, whatever that do, like filter packages. Here we're finally getting to some action. It's not too much action. This is not very realistic at all. This does not give me the sense of, that her weight is on her leg and that she's throwing a knife. I mean, this looks like the knife is shooting out of her hand like a superpower, right? So a little clunky there, but pretty good otherwise here. Like this all seems to work. These reaction shots here. These guys are all in fear of this blonde bikini babe. That's swinging around her weapons. And then here, this is also kind of unrealistic too. The guy's running away. He looks like he weighs like 400 pounds. She throws a little rock and it hits him in the head, and then he's completely incapacitated and he falls in the mud. Like that's it. That's the battle. I mean, so I have to bring up that Patricia Arquette scene, right, Kurt?
Yeah.
Like, folks, like you can have a good-looking cheesecake babe fighting. You just gotta sell it a little bit better on the writing, right? Here, again, these hard outlines, they have very, very, labor-intensive coloring going on. So why not, back up on that thing, make it gray or make it, or some other color. They also have these veins on the horses, and like you can see it, but then they like overdo it, right? It's like, hey, I got this technique of putting the veins in on the horses, but then they do it too much, right?
Right.
I don't know if you guys noticed that, but just these are the little things that I pick up. My OCD kicks in. So here there's a showdown here. She's going to deliver her, this guy and get the bounty. I hate this sign here. I'm also, another one of my pet peeves is when the regular artist is doing the signs. You need to sell it. Either use a font or just don't do it at all. But here she's posing. She's looking really intimidating, and then he's giving her another job here. I don't know if I got to this part here. She's going to go skinny dipping. So I guess this is that.
Thank God.
Right. So yeah, these guys. So this creative team is, they're going for the cheesecake thing. The TNA. The violence is not believable. The story, is like, she works alone. She's ravishingly gorgeous. And here she's going to take out these 3 guys now. She picked up a rock, so look out.
That's her weapon of choice, is a rock.
That's right. Oh, no, here she's smashing it straight in his face, and she eluded the scimitar at the same time. 3 guys couldn't take out this one chick. She bashes his head in, and she was able to knock his teeth out. So that implies superhuman strength. I mean, but she's just I guess just the fury of it all. I like this coloring here. This colorist has studied his Frazetta, and he has, he's bringing in these other tones. I'm going to give this colorist a really good compliment here. I don't know if it's the same guy doing all the veins though, but he's working with these hard ink lines. So maybe it's the inker that's a little bit clunky here, because some of this inking, the stroke work, it's not very smooth, right? And you can see like the, I guess, initial lines and the secondary lines, and then they both get scanned and they both end up in the final art. See that?
Yeah.
But there's some talent here. I just don't know about them putting it all together. They're not working on every cylinder. And the tattoos are nice too. I don't know if they're using like some kind of overlay stencil, idea to do that, but they're nice. I can't imagine that the colorist is reinventing the wheel every time. I think they just have these tattoo filters that they just lay it over, and then they just like hit it with a little bit of green. So she dispatches these guys, leaves them tied up. This is kind of like the web slinger thing, right? What else happens? So rope bridge here, nice vistas. She's camping out at night. She's looking. Here we have the down angle. Here we have the through the crowd angle. Here we have the angle of the feet. I like the way that these guys keep changing the angle. They're good at that. Um, Here we're in another tavern here, right? Like she wouldn't get hit on in 2 seconds. Okay, but oh, here comes the royal guards. They look like Romans, and I think they're messing with her when she's trying to finish her beer. I guess she must be drinking Amstel Light to have that kind of a figure, but she's gonna get up. She's gonna get up here, and my guess is she's just gonna like take out all these guys. Oh no! Look, just the mere threat of violence puts all of these guards. There's got to be a half a dozen of them in check, and they lead her right to the banquet hall of this bearded guy. And what happens now? So she pulls out the knife, and then she's surrounded here. Doesn't she look like Christina Applegate to you, or is it me?
Yeah.
A young Christina Applegate.
Sure.
The name is Arhian, and oh, come on, guys, how about some action? So I think they're just going to talk it out. He's going to dip his cup in and give her some wine. She's going to drink it. And then he's going to hire her. I guess it's this kind of thing where I'll pay you double what they're paying you. I am noticing that maybe the artwork is getting a little bit more sparse and a little bit more lazy, right? You notice that at the end of a comic sometimes.
Yeah.
But just to close this thing out, they missed an opportunity here. They needed some action. Very little action in this comic. A lot of standing around and looking.
She's looking hot. And that's
she's looking hot. She's got the abs. You got the up angle, you got the down angle. She's definitely got the attitude. She's got the tude. But and great marks for the colorist. A couple of pointers, I would say for the inker or the inking process. Good marks for the penciler. All the different angles. I've said that a few times. And then it's just it's a pretty good product. It's a pretty good product. I'm guessing these guys are this is issue 1 of 5. I'm guessing these guys are spending their their time and their money, and they're trying to put this thing out, hoping that it sells. God only knows what happens. Let me see. This was 2015, so whatever it did, it did. But yeah, there's a little contrast. Here is the heavy metal kind of a production company, and all the history of Taarna, and then here's a new character coming out of nowhere, and very similar genre, but 2 different ways of doing it. So that's my report.
Nice. That was I'm definitely interested in getting a hold of the Taarnas. I think his name is Juan Guillemez. He did a lot of heavy metal work, super washy, monochromatic coloring, but just really awesome rendering. I know he did the Meta Barons with Jodorowsky and stuff. So I'm going to definitely check them out. So I thank you for shining a light on them.
Yeah, heavy metal is still going after all these years. People made fun of the Teenage Mutant Turtle guys when they bought heavy metal, and they made those.
No, it was only Kevin Eastman that bought.
Just the one.
Yeah. Peter Laird and definitely went on the reclusive side of the whole comics thing, and Eastman, being the younger toe on that, definitely shot out and became hyperbolic in the industry. And I think
Kurt, your volume's dropping some of the time here. You could
you hear me?
Definitely eat the mic.
Okay.
Yeah, but so Eastman is the one that bought heavy metal, lock, stock, and barrel, right? And he's doing some stuff with it now. Like for decades, he was just putting out the magazine, and he had sunk a lot of money into those animated features. one of which was a big release, but number two, the FAQ thing was, I think, like straight to DVD, straight to video or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he must have lost millions on that. But he's back at it again, and as we speak, there is a preview in the theaters now for the next installment of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle franchise.
Which
And
they
I
don't
noticed
own
that.
anymore. They don't own it anymore.
Right, but is he getting any back end?
No,
Is he out of
nope,
it?
nope. It was a
Completely out of it?
complete buyout. Yep. I forget who
Right.
owns it now, but they don't see a penny ever again.
Yeah, no, it's a big company that owns it now.
Yep.
Either Sony or
Yep.
Time Warner or one of those. But
Yep.
I did notice there was a YouTube video out on commenting on how it's now a kids franchise.
Yeah.
A real mainstream blockbuster. And Kurt, if you haven't seen it yet, check out the preview, because the thing I know, like, neither one of us is going to see that movie, but the really interesting thing is the animation style that they're
Yeah.
using.
Yeah.
It's a style I haven't seen before, and it kind of looks somewhere between like claymation and 3D rendering. It's very unique. I might even actually see the movie just for the
Sounds
aesthetics of it.
interesting.
But
Sounds
yeah,
interesting.
but this YouTube guy who does comic stuff, I should know his name, but he has a commentary on how this extremely violent black and white indie comic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comes out, and then it's just like the most sanitized kid product you ever saw.
That's how they
And
made
so,
their millions.
right.
That's
What was it public? What they got for selling out? What Eastman and Laird got?
I don't know, but the cartoonist kayfabe, Ed and Jim did a issue by issue with both Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, and it is phenomenal history of the truth about that whole thing. I'll put a link into that. I don't know, at least for the first episode, you can kind of hopefully hone in the next. Maybe they made a playlist for it, but I can't remember any of that. I actually bought issue 2. And then traded it immediately for another comic amongst my friends, because it just didn't sit with me. It was too cartoony. I was looking for
Well, an
realism
issue
in my
of
ninjas. Yeah, the first
an
issue of Teenage Mutant, and the second issue of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yeah.
Yeah, well, issue number one is on Google here. A 9.8 sold for $245,000 in
Right.
2021.
Right.
That's just like Monopoly money.
So there you go. There you go.
Oh,
So
Nickelodeon's acquired the Turtles for $60 million in 2009. So I'm sure it's changed hands since then.
right.
But but these guys are probably making some bank on the back issues. How about that?
Sure. No. Yeah. I don't think they have anything to do with it anymore. So sorry.
Right.
But all right, well, let me jump into mine, because this is like a kind of a part 2, if you will, to last episode of Comics That Influence, where I showed off. I have it near me. Yeah, Jeffrey Jones's Idol.
Oh yeah,
IH.
just to put a cap on it. In 2009, it was reported that Eastman and Laird sold the franchise to Nickelodeon, which is Viacom, for $60 million.
Okay,
Nice day at the office.
there you go. All right, so I have in front of me a Marvel comic. It's
What?
called. This is a
Be
Marvel
still my
comic.
heart.
So, with my last episode, I diving into Idol by Jeffrey Catherine Jones and I'm Age. I've been going into this space of the one-page gag or the one-page comic book story. And so in all of my research, the Golden Age, and then therefrom, it starts dissipating. the one pager obviously loses its dollar value when it's more exploitive to do, long story arcs in comics, and especially the superhero comics that take over the anthology books, from like Fantastic Four and Thor and so on and so forth. But this is a Martin Goodman. It's called Comedy. It was published in 1961. You go on a huge amount about Martin Goodman and being the
Yeah.
original publisher. In other episodes that we've done, especially in our Making Turbo Pit Fighter, and the history, right? The history of Marvel Comics.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
there,
there's a new Stan Lee documentary right now on Disney Plus on the Marvel tab, and they really downplay Martin Goodman, but before you get to, because from 1961 on it all becomes about Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, but this is right before then. The company was going by Timely most of the time,
this is a
and
timely feature.
yeah, and they were basically just going from trend to trend to trend, and it was it's, and the way the Stan Lee talks about it in his revisionist history is that he was about to quit. It wasn't fulfilling, but he was the editor then, and there was very few people there. They also had a lot of freelancers. I see you got Bill Ward there.
Ah, yeah.
So yeah, so is this like an adult cartoon? What is this? An adult compilation of single panels or what?
Well, you'll see. You will see.
Oh,
Because I want everybody to look at it from and yourself included, from this very specific lens of the one shot. You get one page, one illustration, and a line of text. And I'm super interested in this format as well as the one page comic. So, with that being said, yes, the other reason I've bought these, or I'm getting a hold of these on the cheap on eBay, are my two favorite cartoonists right now are Bill Ward and Dan DeCarlo. So
huh.
I'm just kind of double dipping in getting a hold of these soon to be ancient relics. But the whole idea, it's a mixture. They have pinup girls in here, and then this is a Bill Wessel, who's a really prolific guy doing these types of comics. So they're just all of these very dated, very male-sided, masculine-sided cartoon strips. But there's something undeniable about setting up an image and then writing a block of text underneath it, or just a sentence or two.
Caption, yeah.
Yeah, a caption, and I'm just captivated by it. And some of them are really funny, in just a goofy way, and some of them are a little kind of tongue in cheekish. But this was definitely a way to make a living as an illustrator, cartoonist. Not only did somebody like Timely Magazines put these, there's all sorts. There's comedy. There's was it Gaze and G Whiz, there's just so many of them. It's just really fascinating. But it's just I don't have anything other than to say I'm just extremely captivated by this art form, and whether it could be resurrected or not. Do we have to live in a long story format? Is that the only way that we can get entertainment or some kind of story across to a reader? So, and I think also too, there's something to be said about condensing your story and ideas to be more efficient in a day where people are just dead scrolling. They're just dead scrolling through their phones, whatever app that they've chose to go through, Instagram, Tumblr, what have you, to get somebody to stop on something and go, wow, that's a really neat drawing, and that's kind of interesting, and then read something and go, ha ha, I get that, and then move on. So that's what I'm really interested in, and I just really
Yeah,
want
I
to
mean,
start sharing
what
these.
you're showing looks like it looks like they had these are like these single panel strips that are put in Playboy and men's
Yep.
magazines. Um, I mean, National Lampoon had them too, but these all look like they're oriented towards you know hot females and gawking at them and saying pithy things. And it looks like Goodman said, "Hey, let's just license a whole bunch of these and just make a whole book out of it, right?" And these probably ran in other magazines, maybe multiple
Oh, they
times.
rehash, because what happens is I'll just jump to one of the bonuses in this one, and was one of the reasons I pulled the trigger. Where are you? It's coming up, coming up. Here we go. So here's a reprint. Obviously, Mr. Basil Wolverton did not get compensated for this reprint, but this is one of his most earliest characters that he sold
Uh-huh.
to Martin Goodman, and were in Marvel Comics. Is a Powerhouse Pepper. So is this goofy guy, boxer, Popeye type. But to see Basil Wolverton's work in black and white printed is equal to an R. Crumb. So, and it's obvious. Somebody once said that the recipe to R. Crumb is Basil Wolverton and Walt Kelly. So you take those two things and you condense them together and you get an R. Crumb. So I just
Well,
absolutely
I
love.
think, yeah, I think that Gilbert Shelton is more of a Basil Wolverton copycat. But there's an influence, I think, of all of the early black and white guys. I think this also appeared in Mad, in the early Mads that were being put out by Kurtzman, right?
I don't
Because I
know. These were owned by Marvel, so I don't think they were
no, but
ever
well, Basil,
for
yeah, Powerhouse,
Basil Wolverton was definitely in Mad and Cracked, and
right?
he had a pretty damn good career.
Yeah, he was a
You know,
regular. He was a regular, but
no, he just
this is his earlier character, and also don't forget that Wolverton also ended up doing those incredible covers for Plop magazine,
yeah.
where you had those incredibly ugly faces and those like weird characters. So, um, he Wolverton um, made a statement at one point that he got tired of doing superheroes and he wanted to do those kind of like fantastical characters and a very interesting style as far as hatching and shading with Wolverton, and I noticed you're DeCarlos, but Bill Ward, we have to comment on Bill Ward on
Yeah, let me get a
style
mic.
his style of drawing leather. We have to comment that, or
Get it on,
it
get it on thing. It's but his this is going to be
it's
exposing for. Oh, here's all the titles for what Goodman was coming out: Just Gaze, Comedy, Gee Whiz, I, Romp, Snappy, Joker, Stare, Laugh It Off, and Breezy. So, but
right, and
just to let a cat out of the bag, a secret. It might be. I'm going to actually in edit put this up even closer, but the majority of his art is non-ink. So he's getting these effects and this 3D feeling in making these, like, I don't think it's charcoal. There's a thing called a grease pencil, which
mm,
was you could get in stick form, and it was very much like this is an eraser of mine, but you peel back to get the extension, and then you can really work it out that way. So anybody who is watching us on the Making a Turbo Pit Fighter, I do, and you can see a page right here, a lot of values. Now this is also, I'm using a water soluble graphite, as well as color pencils, obviously establishing all the line in inks, white, so I really get into it. Hence, what the effects that Mr. Bill Ward is able to get. And then you contrast it to Basil Wolverton, you really can start seeing how people, artists younger, would immediately want to aspire to this level of artistry. So it's pretty fantastic to just have one of these little magazines and use it
Yeah,
as a point of inspiration.
I think Ward used pen and ink, and then he would just go back in and just use pencil over it, and then he wasn't shy about using white media on top of it, whether it was grease pencil or
It could be
whiteout.
compressed charcoal. Another thing I could say, this is, because it's all edges. It's the way he moves with compressed charcoal.
I
It's
think
like 70% of the value system is, if not 80%, is a medium other than ink.
Yeah, well, there's some stuff online, selling his original art on Heritage. It's ink, Conte crayon, and watercolor
Conte. Wow.
over graphite.
Okay.
So you got four different things. So he's one of these all of the above guys, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
The piece I'm looking at is much later, where I think he was just making like convention sketches and stuff. But I'm sure he had like a whole bag of tools in front of him, and the great thing about him that everybody should take away is his shiny effect. I mean, it's not just things that are leather; it's also those stockings, right? The
Yeah.
silky effect
Oh
of the
yeah.
stockings. And it doesn't just have to be like attractive females. You can do that in any character, and it's the study of drapery, and fabric, and how to get those textures. Really, really great stuff.
Yeah.
And
So yeah, in closing for my little segment, I don't really want to belabor too much on it because I really want to just do a call out to those that are following and watching us. And if you're a first time watcher, this is just a breakout segment from our uh, uh, Making Turbo Pit Fighter comic book. I just want to ask for people to give me some suggestions based on one page comic book stories. They don't have to be anything specific like love, romance, horror, whatever, sexy,
I
sci-fi, and
got
everything.
you.
I'm really interested in getting more and more
I,
information
I,
about it
I
and go
got
from
you.
there.
I, I got a great suggestion,
What
and
you got?
that's National Lampoon. They had
Yeah,
a
yeah,
they had a bunch they had the comic section in the back,
right,
and they had a bunch of different one-page comics every month. Thinking, of course they had Jones, but then they also had Gahan Wilson. They had Trotz and Bonnie. They had a bunch of different styles. Some of them came and went, but they were all doing one-page strips.
right.
And so pick up an old National Lampoon. I must have a couple here.
It's a
And
great suggestion.
really, yeah, really, really interesting stuff. And so maybe we should, there's probably a coffee table book that compiles it all. But
Right.
or maybe you got to go artist by artist, but
Yeah,
it was all great stuff.
one of the places I've been using as a resource is comics.org, which is the comic books database. And I've really learned a lot of tricks in being able to kind of find more information in the specifics about, not only just one page comics, but specific artists and then tracking them down and then trying to find more and more about that. And that's what led to this is that I kept coming across pages that said it was in, zip. And I'm like, zip? What the heck is zip? But then when you scroll the page, it's all one pagers. So then I
Uh-huh.
started, oh, okay. And then, you Google, and then all of a sudden, the commerce part comes in and you see eBay postings. And then they've done the classic, flip through, and they're showing you, a couple of and I'm like, wait a second, here's a almost complete, this is a Bill Ward with Zipatone, or that,
Yeah.
no, that's Duotone. Oh, wow. So that's on Duotone board, Duotone
Well,
shape.
that's only one. That's only one color,
Yep, that's just a gray
right?
value. But
Right. But
anyhow, I
those
just
those
I just
covers
want,
that you're looking at have are duotone.
yeah.
I mean, the one on the right is 4-color process, but the other two are just duotone, black and a spot color.
Right. So
Right.
with that being said, that this is my hunt right now, and it coincides with a project that I'm working on that I might show off. But Jake, today on the 30th of July 2003, in an episode 68 of the making of Turbo Pit Fighter, we have completed our first Turbo teaser pages one
That's
through
right.
six. So we are going to have links to where to go and purchase it, which will be on my website, kurtrugel.com. This is bagged and boarded. It's how it's sold. We're going to be talking about this nonstop. Next Sunday, Jake, we will be going into pages 7 through 12. This is page 7 of the next uh, pack of pages that will be in the Turbo Teaser number 2, which is in Turbo Pit Fighter comic book number 1, chapter 1 of 6 of the graphic novel. And you can be with us in our main segment of the making of Turbo Pit Fighter. But with that, that is all I have to say. I just like to thank everybody for joining us. And we are two crazy guys that get together every Sunday and make a comic book together. And we don't know if there is another channel or two nuts like ourselves that are doing this, but we're having a great time, and we get together every Sunday, and we're putting out new content. So that's all I got. Jake, what do you got?
That's it. If anybody knows of another pairing of people that are making a comic live on a podcast every week, let us know. If not, we're going to claim that we're the only ones doing it. And then, of course, this is our other series, the comics that influence us, where we review and do flip throughs. So
Right.
check us out and see you next time.
Cool. See you next week, Jake.
All right, man.